Ladies and gentlemen, today we are visiting the beige, lukewarm, unending waiting room of the Premier League. We are talking about the pride of South London, we are talking about the Eagles, we are talking about Crystal Palace. And honestly, being a Palace fan isn't a tragedy. Tragedy implies a dramatic fall from grace, a catastrophic event, a hero brought low by hubris. Palace fans don't get tragedy. They get bureaucracy. They get stasis. They get the feeling of being stuck in a revolving door that spins just fast enough to make you dizzy, but never actually lets you into the building. To support Crystal Palace is to accept that your primary function in the football ecosystem is to make up the numbers. You're the filler in the sandwich. You're the background NPC in the video game of the Premier League, programmed to win 11 games, draw 12, lose 15, and finish exactly 12th. Every single year. It is a uniquely suffocating experience. It's the hope that kills you, sure, but at Palace it's not the hope of winning the league. It's the hope that maybe, just maybe, you might finish above 10th. And even that feels like asking for the moon. So grab a lukewarm pie, sit on a wooden seat that hasn't been replaced since the Cold War, and let's discuss why supporting this club is a psychological endurance test. 1. The infinite loop of mid-table purgatory. Imagine it's May, the sun is shining. The Premier League season is wrapping up. Sky Sports is screaming about the title race. They're screaming about the relegation battle. There are tears, there are pitch invasions, there is drama of Shakespearean proportions. And then, the camera pans to you. The Crystal Palace fan. What are you doing? You're checking your phone to see if you finished 11th or 12th, and you realise with a sinking feeling in your gut that it doesn't matter. The most painful thing about being a Palace fan is the absolute crushing consistency of mediocrity. You are the Groundhog Day of football clubs. Since returning to the Premier League in 2013, Crystal Palace has created the most boring statistical anomaly in sports history. You don't go down, you don't go up, you just exist. You're the football equivalent of lukewarm tap water. Safe? Yes. Exciting? Absolutely not. Let's look at the hard evidence, shall we? In the last decade, Palace's finishing positions read like a binary code of boredom. 11th, 10th, 15th, 14th, 11th, 12th, 14th, 12th, 11th, 10th. It is spectacular in its lack of ambition. You're effectively the bouncer of the Premier League. You stand in the middle, you let the rich guys into the VIP section, Europe, and you kick the drunks out into the Championship. But you never get to go inside the club. You just stand at the door year after year wearing a neon jacket, watching other people have fun. The why here is simple. The club is designed for survival, not success. The board, the owners, the structure, it's all built on the premise of the 40-point mark. That is the only trophy Palace fans have ever known. The moment the team hits 40 points, usually around March, the players mentally check out. They've done their job. They've secured the TV revenue for another year. Why run? Why tackle? Why try to score a second goal when a 1-1 draw against Everton keeps the lights on? It sucks because you are trapped in a golden cage. You can't complain too loudly because fans of teams like Reading or Sunderland will scream, "At least you're in the Premier League!" And they're right. But that's the torture. You are rich enough to stay at the party, but too poor to buy a drink. You are perpetually stuck in 12th place, a position that offers no Europa League, no relegation thrill, just a blank space on the Wikipedia page. You are the default settings of the English top flight, so congratulations. You support a spreadsheet entry. You don't have a season, you have a fiscal year. You aren't a supporter, you're an auditor ensuring the books balance for another cycle of absolute nothingness. 2. The streets won't forget curse, and the ones who leave. There is a specific type of pain reserved for Palace fans, and it revolves around the concept of the talisman. Because Palace, for all their beige mediocrity, usually manages to have one guy who is electric, one guy who makes you believe that football is art, one guy who belongs in the Champions League but is currently playing a 1-2 with Jordan Ayew on a rainy Tuesday in Croydon. For years it was Wilfried Zaha. The man carried the entire institution on his back for the better part of a decade. He was the only reason to watch. He would get kicked, hacked, booed by every other fan base, and he would still drag Palace to safety. And what did the club do? They surrounded him with players bought from the bargain bin of the Championship. It was like watching a Michelin star chef trying to cook a gourmet meal using only ingredients found in a vending machine. Now Zaha's gone. and the cycle repeated with Michael Olise. Oh, Olise. The silkiest, most effortlessly cool player the league had seen in years. He didn't celebrate goals, he just vibed, and every time he touched the ball, every Palace fan felt two emotions simultaneously. Pure joy and the absolute dread-filled certainty that he was leaving. And he did. Off to Bayern Munich, because that's the rule. This is the hard evidence of your misery. You're a feeder club with a massive ego. You pride yourself on South London talent, on the cage football mentality. You produce Eberechi-Eze, you polish up Mark Guéhi, you unleash Adam Wharton, and for a brief shining moment you think, wow, if we keep this core together, we could push for Europe. But you won't keep them together. You know it. I know it. The world knows it. The second a player shows world-class potential at Selhurst Park, the vultures start circling. The big six arrive with their checkbooks and their promises of Champions League nights, and suddenly your star boy is holding up a Chelsea or a United or a Bayern shirt. The metaphor here is brutal. You're a foster home for superstars. You raise them, you teach them manners, you fix their teeth, you get them through the awkward teenage years, and the moment they become successful, high-functioning adults, they move out to live with the rich stepdad who owns a yacht. And what do you get? A transfer fee. A pile of cash that sits in the bank while you replace the next big thing with a 29-year-old journeyman on a free transfer. It creates a toxic relationship with your own players. You're afraid to love them too much. You watch Eze dribble past 3 defenders and you don't cheer. You cringe because you know his price tag just went up by 10 million. And Man City's scouts just sent a WhatsApp message. You can't enjoy the brilliance because the brilliance is exactly why they won't be yours for long. So you sit there, watching the highlights of your former players winning trophies in Germany or Manchester, while you try to convince yourself that the replacement you signed from the Belgian second division is one for the future. He isn't. But hey, the transfer fee balanced the books again. 3. The Seagull Envy. The Brighton problem. Let's talk about the neighbours. Let's talk about the M23 derby. To the rest of the world, the rivalry between Crystal Palace and Brighton and Hove Albion is weird. It doesn't make geographical sense to anyone outside the southeast, but to you, it is everything. And right now, it is a source of acute, burning humiliation. For decades, Palace was the big brother. You were the tough South London club with the history and the grit. Brighton, they were the weirdos by the seaside who nearly went out of business and played in an athletics stadium. You laughed at them, you looked down on them. But now? Oh God, now. The hard evidence is staring you in the face every weekend. Brighton is everything Palace promised to be but failed to become. Brighton is the smartest kid in class. Brighton buys a player from Ecuador for 50 quid and a bag of crisps, plays him for 6 months and sells him for $115 million as a Brighton plays sexy, De Zerbi ball or Herzler ball, or whoever the next genius they hire is. Brighton gets into Europe. Brighton beats the big boys for fun. Meanwhile, at Palace, you are rebooting Roy Hodgson. Again. Or you're hiring Oliver Glasner and praying the new manager bounce lasts longer than 3 months. The why hurts because it exposes the incompetence of your own setup. Brighton has a strategy. They have a proprietary data algorithm that finds wonder kids in Japan and Paraguay. Crystal Palace's scouting strategy often feels like Steve Parish scrolling through transfer-marked filters, set to Premier League proven and available on loan. It's like watching your nerdy, annoying little cousins suddenly invent a killer app and become a tech billionaire while you're still working the same mid-level retail job you had 10 years ago. You hate them. You hate their smugness. You hate their stupid seagulls. But deep down, and this is the part you can't say out loud at the pub, you are jealous. You are furiously jealous. You watch them selling Casado and McAllister for GDP-level sums and reinvesting it into more good players. When Palace sells a star, where does the money go? A new stand? The academy? Is it buried under the pitch? Nobody knows. We just know we're signing a 30-year-old winger to add experience while Brighton signs the next Messi. The rivalry isn't even a rivalry of equals anymore. It's a rivalry of ideology. They represent the future of smart football. You represent the stubborn refusal to change. And every time they finish above you, which is happening a lot lately, it's not just a defeat on the pitch. It's a confirmation that they are smarter than you. 4. The Selhurst Park paradox. World-class noise in a third-world facility. Let's talk about your home, Selhurst Park. If you ask any casual fan or a pundit on Twitter about Crystal Palace, they'll say the same thing. oh, fantastic atmosphere, best in the league. The Homestale fanatics are incredible. And they are right. The atmosphere is electric. It is intimidating. It is the only place in England where you get a whiff of European ultra culture, complete with drums, flags, and coordinated bouncing. But here is the reality that only you know. The stadium itself is a crumbling relic that is being held together by duct tape, nostalgia, and the sheer collective will of the fan base. The main stand is not a piece of sporting infrastructure, it is a historical reenactment of 1924. The hard evidence is physical. You're sitting in a stand that was designed before the invention of the internet, before television, and possibly before the concept of legroom. The wooden seats are charming in a museum piece kind of way, but less charming when they are digging into your spine for 90 minutes. And let's talk about the renovation. The renovation. The grand main stand redevelopment plan. It was announced in 2018. We are now halfway through the 2020s. We have seen managers come and go. We have seen pandemics. We have seen governments rise and fall. And that stand still looks exactly the same. Every year there's a new update, or a new planning permission hurdle cleared, or a new CGI render released. At this point, Palace fans don't believe the new stand is real. It's a myth. It's a bedtime story Steve Parish tells you to make you renew your season ticket. The why here is a brutal lesson in economics. Palace is stuck in a catch-22. To get the money to build the stand, they need to stay in the Premier League. To stay in the Premier League, they need to spend all their money on players, so the stadium fund gets raided to buy a backup centre-back from Fulham on deadline day. It creates a bizarre dissonance. You have this incredible, modern, energetic fan base, young, loud, vibrant, trapped inside a building that smells like wet concrete and despair. You're watching Premier League athletes perform in a venue that feels like it should be hosting a greyhound race in 1975. So you keep singing, you bang the drum, you jump up and down. Not just to support the team, but to distract yourself from the fact that if you look too closely at the roof, you might see it moving in the wind. You aren't in a stadium, you're in a listed building with a noise permit. 5. The striker graveyard, where goalscorers go to forget how to score. If you are a striker, and your agent calls you to say Crystal Palace is interested, you should hang up. You should throw your phone in the ocean. You should change your identity and move to Peru. Because signing for Crystal Palace as a number 9 is a career death sentence. For the vast majority of the last decade, Crystal Palace has been the place where goal-scoring records go to die. It is a cursed position. It is the Bermuda Triangle of the penalty box. Look at the roll call of sorrow, Christian Benteke. He started well, then forgot how to kick a ball for 3 years, becoming a meme for missing sitters, Alexander Sørloth. He looked like a confused lamppost at Selhurst Park, scored 0 Premier League goals, left the club, and immediately became a goal machine in Turkey and Spain, eventually landing a move to Atletico Madrid. What is that? That's not bad scouting, that's witchcraft. Then there's Odsonne Edouard, French Eddie. He arrived with hype, scored 2 goals on his debut against Spurs, and we all thought, finally, the curse is broken. Fast forward, and he's drifting through games like a ghost, looking disinterested before being shipped out on loan to Leicester. And sure, Jean-Philippe Matita had that insane purple patch under Oliver Glasner at the end of last season. He turned into prime R9 Ronaldo for about 10 games. He was kicking corner flags, screaming, scoring bangers, but deep down, every Palace fan is waiting for the carriage to turn back into a pumpkin. We are traumatised. We don't trust happiness. We expect the drought to return because history tells us that a Palace striker with 15+ goals a season is a statistical error, not the norm. The why is tactical isolation. For years, under managers like Roy Hodgson, the Palace striker was the loneliest man in London. His job wasn't to score, his job was to stand 40 yards away from his teammates, chest down a high ball, hold off 2 6'4" defenders, and wait for Zaha to run past him. It's ungrateful work. It's trench warfare. It sucks because you watch other teams with less money than you, find absolute gems. You watch Brentford with Ivan Toney, and now Mbeumo Wissa. You watch Bournemouth with Solanke before he left. And you look at your own squad, where you are relying on a rotation of guys who score in streaks, separated by 6 months of famine. You spend your weekends screaming, "Shoot!" at a man who has clearly lost all confidence in his own limbs. You celebrate a striker scoring a goal not with joy, but with shock. Oh my god, he actually hit the net! Isn't a celebration. It's a diagnosis of how low your standards have fallen. 6. The new era, false dawn, the Glasner versus Hodgson cycle. This is the cycle that breaks your spirit. It's the identity crisis. Every few years, the Crystal Palace board decides they are tired of being boring. They are tired of Roy ball. They want to be progressive. They want high pressing. They want possession. They want to be the South London Ajax. So they hire a cool modern manager. They hired Frank de Boer. Remember that? He lasted 4 games, 0 goals, 0 wins, sacked. Who did they call? Roy Hodgson. To save them. They hired Patrick Vieira. It started great. High energy, young players, FA Cup semi-final. Then, the wheels fell off, the team stopped shooting, and they got dragged into a relegation scrap. Who did they call? Roy Hodgson. To save them. Now, we're in the Oliver Glasner era. And make no mistake, when Glasner came in, it was intoxicating. The end of the 23-24 season was a fever dream. Palace was destroying teams. Liverpool, beaten. United, demolished 4-0. Villa, crushed 5-0. Matita was scoring, Olise was magic, Ease was dancing. The fans thought, this is it. We are finally a top-half team. We are going for Europe. But then came the summer. Olise left. Anderson left. The hard reality set in. The start of the 24-25 season was a slap in the face. Winless runs, struggling to score, the high press looking more like a high stress as defenders got bypassed with ease. The misery here is the false dawn. It's the hope that kills you. Palace fans were sold a dream of Champions League-style football, but the squad depth is still stuck in the Championship. You realise that Glasner ball requires elite players, and when you sell your best creator, Olise, and your best passer out of the back, Anderson, the system breaks. You're watching a manager trying to play Formula 1 tactics in a Honda Civic. It's valiant, but the engine's smoking, and the darkest thought in the back of your mind. The terrifying, intrusive thought that wakes you up at 3 a.m. What if it doesn't work? What if he gets sacked? Is Roy still available? You live in fear of the loop. You want to evolve, you want to change, but every time you try to fly, gravity pulls you back down. And waiting at the bottom, holding a clipboard and a pragmatic 4-4-2 formation, is the ghost of seasons past. You aren't just fighting the opposition, you're fighting your own destiny to be boring forever. 7. The boardroom civil war. Mom and dad are fighting. If the product on the pitch is often boring, the drama in the boardroom is a full-blown HBO Succession drama, but without the cool theme music or the private jets. Being a Palace fan means you don't just have to worry about the left-back's hamstring, you have to worry about the multi-millionaire American shareholders having a public breakdown on the internet. For years, you had the Three Amigos ownership structure, Steve Parish holding the wheel, while Josh Harris and David Blitzer sat in the back writing the checks. It was stable, it was fine. But then came John Textor, the Eagle football visionary, the man who owns Botafogo, Lyon, Molenbeek, and seemingly half the football clubs on Google Earth. Here is the hard evidence of your misery. You are currently the child in a very messy, very public divorce. John Textor, who owns 45% of the club, has publicly stated he wants to sell his shares. Why? Because he wants to buy Everton. Do you know how insulting that is? That is like your husband telling you he wants a divorce so he can go marry the chaotic, debt-ridden, unstable woman down the street because she has a bigger house. Textor gives interviews criticising the club's model. Parish gives interviews defending the sustainability. And you, the fan, are stuck in the middle. You read reports that the club can't spend money because the shareholders can't agree on the colour of the napkins in the boardroom, let alone a 30 million transfer budget. The why is a clash of cultures. Steve Parish is the safe hands. He remembers administration. He remembers the dark days of 2010 when the club nearly ceased to exist. He is risk-averse. He treats the club's bank account like it's his own pension fund. Textor is the disruptor. He wants multi-club networks, high spending, big risks. These two philosophies cannot coexist. So, the club is paralysed. While other teams are executing 5-year plans, Crystal Palace is stuck in a power struggle that freezes decision-making. You see reports of transfer targets stalling because nobody knows who is actually signing the checks next month. It sucks because you have no control. You are watching two rich men wrestle for the steering wheel of a moving car, while you are strapped in the back seat screaming about the fact that you still need a striker. You aren't a football club, you're a distressed asset in a private equity portfolio. 8. The ghost of the Pardew Dance, the Wembley trauma. Every football fan has a moment of cringe that keeps them awake at night. But Crystal Palace fans, you possess the nuclear bomb of cringe. You possess the single most embarrassing moment in FA Cup final history. And the worst part is, it happened when you were winning. We have to talk about May 24th, 2016, the FA Cup final. Crystal Palace versus Manchester United. The hard evidence is burned into your retinas. 78th minute. Jason Puncheon smashes the ball past David De Gea. 1-0 Palace. The end is in sight. The first major trophy in the club's history is 10 minutes away. And then, it happens. Alan Pardew, the manager, the Silver Fox. He turns to the camera and he dances. He does a little shimmy, a little uncle at a wedding boogie, a smug, I've just won the cup wiggle. In that exact second, every Palace fan felt two things. 1, euphoria, and 2, the icy cold hand of doom gripping their heart. You knew. You instantly knew the gods of football would not allow that dance to go unpunished, and they didn't. Juan Mata equalised 3 minutes later. Jesse Lingard scored a screamer in extra time. Palace lost. But you didn't just lose a game, you lost your dignity. The Pardew Dance is a gift that will outlive the human race. It is used every time a team celebrates too early. It is the defining image of the club's modern history. Not the goal, not the run to the final, the dance. The why hurts because it reinforces the narrative that Palace are the jesters of the league. You were the nearly men in 1990, losing to United in a replay, and you were the meme men in 2016. You don't get glory, you get banter. You played a valiant game, but the narrative was stolen by your manager's hips. It sucks because you can't even be tragic heroes. If you lose a final on penalties, people feel sorry for you. If you lose because your manager did a cha-cha slide on the touchline before the final whistle, people laugh at you. You live with the knowledge that if you ever reach a final again, you will be paralysed by fear. Not fear of losing, but fear that Oliver Glasner might try to moonwalk if you go 1-0 up. You're the only fan base in the world that prays for your manager to remain completely motionless when you score. 9. The sensible transfer addiction, deadline day depression. There are clubs that win the transfer window. Chelsea wins the transfer window by spending £1 billion. West Ham wins the transfer window. Even Fulham sometimes wins the transfer window. Crystal Palace? Crystal Palace survives the transfer window. Being a Palace fan in January or August is a masterclass in lowered expectations. You watch Sky Sports News, you see the yellow ticker. Breaking, Newcastle bid 60 mils for superstar. Breaking, Villa sign Champions League winner. Then you wait for the Palace news, and wait, and wait. The hard evidence is the Dougie Freedman special. Palace's transfer strategy is essentially looking for players who were good in the Championship 2 years ago, or players who have good character. You don't sign marquee names, you sign solid pros. You sign Will Hughes, you sign Joel Ward, again, you sign Rob Holding, and then there's deadline day. The clock is ticking down to 11 p.m. The fan base is screaming for a creative midfielder. The squad is crying out for depth. And what happens? Nothing. Or even worse, the fax machine glitch. Remember when Palace tried to sign a goalkeeper or a striker, and the paperwork didn't go through in time? It happens suspiciously often. It's the dog ate my homework of the Premier League. The why is the obsession with value. The Palace board is allergic to overpaying, which sounds smart, right? It sounds responsible. But in a league where inflation is running at 400%, refusing to overpay means you end up shopping at the dollar store while everyone else is at Harrods. You miss out on targets because you haggled over $2 million, and then you end up panicking and signing a random striker on loan who has scored 3 goals in 5 years. It is a cycle of hesitation followed by desperation. It sucks because it kills the dreaming part of fandom. You don't get the YouTube compilation excitement. You don't get the Welcome to Palace hype videos that go viral. You get a press release at 11:45 p.m. announcing the signing of a third-choice centre-back, accompanied by a photo of him looking tired and holding a scarf in an empty room. You don't do retail therapy. You do grocery shopping. You buy what you need to survive the week, milk, bread, a defensive midfielder, but you never ever let yourself buy the steak. 10. The Robin Hood complex, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. If there is one thing that defines the Crystal Palace experience on a week-to-week basis, it is the absolute lack of logic. Supporting this club is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that changes colours every time you blink. You suffer from a severe case of the Robin Hood complex. Here is the scenario. You are playing Manchester City at the Etihad, or Liverpool at Anfield, or Arsenal at the Emirates. By all rights, you should be crushed. The pundits predict a 4-0 drubbing. You, the fan, prepare for humiliation. But then, you turn into prime 1970s Brazil. You defend like Spartans. Eberechies glides past $100 million midfielders like they aren't there. You win 1-0. You destroy Liverpool's title hopes. Sorry, Jurgen. You are the giant killers. You are the kings of the upset. The timeline is flooded with South London and Proud posts. And then, the next week happens. You're playing the team in 19th place. Let's say it's Luton Town or Sheffield United or Burnley. You're at home. It's a guaranteed 3 points. The stadium is buzzing, and you lose. You lose 2-0. In the most pathetic, lifeless performance imaginable. The hard evidence is in the history books. Crystal Palace is the only team in the world that strikes fear into the heart of Pep Guardiola, but wets the bed when facing a team managed by Sean Dyche. You are statistically more likely to get a result against a top 4 team than you are against a team that hasn't won a game in 6 months. It is a statistical anomaly that defies science. The why is a deep-seated psychological flaw in the club's DNA. Palace thrives on counter-attack chaos. You love being the underdog. You love having 20% possession and hitting teams on the break. That is your comfort zone. But when you play a bad team, suddenly you have to have the ball. You have to break them down. And you don't know how. The team looks at the ball like it's a bomb they don't know how to defuse. It sucks because it makes you the most frustrating team to bet on. Not that you should gamble, kids. It denies you momentum. Every time you think, okay, we beat City, now we have an easy run of fixtures, we can push for Europe. Bam. You lose to a team whose striker is a part-time plumber. You live in a state of constant, confusing whiplash. You are the banter club that ruins title races, only to immediately trip over your own shoelaces the moment anyone expects you to actually be good. You fear Luton Town more than you fear Real Madrid. 11. The South London siege mentality, the forgotten borough. We need to talk about geography, because Crystal Palace isn't just a football club, it's a postcode war. If you aren't from London, you might think all London clubs are the same. They aren't. Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs. They are the glamour clubs. They're easy to get to. They are covered by the media constantly. West Ham has the massive stadium, and then there is Palace, way down south, deep in the SE25. To the rest of the Premier League, Selhurst Park might as well be in Narnia. The hard evidence is the media coverage. Watch Match of the Day. Unless you've just beaten Liverpool or someone has scored a Puskas contender, Crystal Palace is always last. You are the graveyard slot of football analysis. The pundits spend 20 minutes dissecting Manchester United's warm-up routine, and then give Palace 30 seconds of, yeah, good result for them, moving on. You are the invisible child of the capital. Even your London derbies feel different. When Chelsea plays Arsenal, it's a global event. When Chelsea plays Palace, it's just a commute. The Chelsea fans don't even consider you a rival. They consider you a nuisance. They pat you on the head. That condescension burns hotter than hatred. The why is that Palace represents the gritty, unpolished, authentic South London. You don't have the tourist fans, you don't have the prawn sandwich brigade, you have locals, you have noise, you have grit. This creates a massive us against the world mentality. You wear South London and Proud like armour because you have to, because if you didn't, the rest of the league would forget you exist. But it sucks because it's exhausting to always be the outsider in your own city. You are the cult classic movie that the critics ignore while they give Oscars to the blockbuster hits. You have to scream twice as loud just to be heard. You are the football equivalent of a kebab shop at 3 a.m. You aren't pretty, you aren't sophisticated, the location is a bit sketchy. But you are real, you are necessary, and the people who love you with a ferocity that the plastic fans of the big clubs will never understand. 12. Final thoughts. The addiction to the average. So why do it? Why subject yourself to the torture of the transfer window silence? Why endure the wooden seats and the wet Tuesdays in Croydon? Why attach your emotional well-being to a club that is mathematically designed to finish 12th forever? Because once you're in, you can't get out. Crystal Palace isn't a hobby, it's a chronic condition. It sucks to be a Palace fan because you are stuck in the uncanny valley of football. You aren't good enough to dream, but you aren't bad enough to panic. You are safe, but you are bored. You are stable, but you are stagnant. But in that stagnation, there is a weird, twisted kind of community. You bond over the misery. You bond over the shared trauma of the Pardew Dance. You bond over the collective groan when a striker misses a sitter. You aren't glory hunters. You can't be. There is no glory to hunt. You're the foot soldiers of the Premier League. You're the ones who keep the league honest. You're the ones who remind the billionaires that you can't just buy a win at Selhurst Park without a fight. You are the noise. You are the colour. You are the Eagles. And deep down, you know the truth. If Palace actually won the league, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself. You'd probably hate it. You'd miss the complaining. You'd miss the cynicism. You'd miss the fear. So, yeah, welcome to SE25. The seats are uncomfortable, the strikers don't score, and we haven't signed anyone since 2022. But the beer is cold and the misery is warm. I'll see you next week for another 1-1 draw. Don't forget to subscribe for more mediocrity, analysis.